When you think about your application, you want to think about it from the perspective of a story. What does your CV say about you? What does your personal statement say about you? What are your letter writers saying about you? How collectively is the cohesion between your letter writers, your CV, and your personal statement? Hopefully, when someone writes their personal statement, there should be things in their CV that connect to their personal statement, which also connects to the letter writers. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if it's your first time. My name is Phil Sarpon. This is Phil's Guide to PsyD. This channel is dedicated to all things psychology, wellness, and graduate school. Today we're talking about certain things that I wish I knew before stepping into becoming a psychologist and going into graduate school. We're going to just jump right in. The first thing is the GPA or the GRE. I think one of the things that they tell you a lot in college and even as you're applying for graduate school is that your GPA is everything. Your GRE score is everything. And what we've seen in the last couple of years is that a lot of schools have done away with the GRE because we know that from research that standardized tests aren't really a good metric to see whether or not someone is going to be successful in graduate school. One of the things about GPA is that GPA can tell you a few things. Obviously, it can tell you about if a student can work hard, but it really doesn't tell you about the grit or the resiliency of a student. And in fact, a lot of programs like to look at the holistic application of a student, not just their GPA, but their extracurriculars, their time in clinical care, research experience, letters of recommendation, leadership experience, volunteer experience. They want to see that you can actually handle a lot of different things and juggle a lot of different things and do well in those things, because that's basically what graduate school is. In fact, there's way less emphasis on getting a 4.0 in graduate school, and there's way more emphasis on the quality of experiences, whether research, teaching, or even clinical practice. Those are the things that probably bear the most weight, because now you're competing with people who are just as smart as you, if not smarter, who get just as good grades as you, as they've been able to show and evidence by their college time. And so one of the things that I feel like is really important that I wish I kind of knew going into graduate school and becoming a psychologist is that honestly, my GPA, my GRE does not define who I am. I didn't have the highest GPA and I did not even have the highest GRE score, and that's okay, because my work as a clinical psychologist speaks so much more in depth to my connection with my patients. It's not to say that it's not important at all, because you do have to have high enough scores to actually apply and get in, but honestly, once you're in, it's really more so about the quality of experiences that you can cultivate for yourself as a student. The other thing that I wish I knew was to not necessarily focus too much on the PhD, the PsyDs, the counseling psychology, the master's level. There's so many different ways to be a clinical therapist, and I think it can be really overwhelming to figure out which path you should choose. And at the end of the day, if you have any type of doctorate in psychology, whether it's, again, PhD in clinical psychology or PsyD in clinical psychology or counseling psychology PhD, I think it's better and easier to work backwards. And so if you know the type of psychologist you want to be, if you know the setting that you want to work in, whether it's a VA, a hospital, private practice, if you know the population that you want to work with, whether it's kids, adults, adolescents, geriatric populations, you can just work backwards. You can find those locations, you can find those people that are working where you want to work, and then work backwards. What degree do they have? Is it clinical psychology? Is it counseling psychology? Where did they go to school? What experiences did they get? What practicum experiences did they obtain? So I think in being able to work backwards, you can focus less on all of the different degree titles and just focus more so on finding the ideal person that you want to be, right? Even 5 years after you graduate from graduate school, and then working backwards and pretty much doing what some of the similar themes or principles that they did. The other thing that I wish someone told me before even going into graduate school is the importance of not selling myself short. You know, I think, and I see this a lot when I work with students when it comes to their applications, in graduate school is that oftentimes they say, oh, I've presented here and I have this publication and I have this experience, and they don't put it on their CV. And I always never really quite understood why. I think, as future psychologists and current psychologists, we're really conscientious. We don't like to brag about ourselves. Typically, we're really kind of sensitive to not really inflating ourselves and our ego and our experiences. But really, the CV and the application is the time to do so. And it's really important to not sell yourself short. If you have presentation skills and presentation experiences, you need to put all of those things into your CV. If you've worked somewhere, if you have clinical experiences, if you have research experiences, you need to really celebrate yourself and celebrate some of the things that you've done and emphasize those things so that other people can know about it as they're making decisions about your application. And so I think that's one of the things that I wish that someone was also able to kind of push me towards, is not selling myself short, being proud of my accomplishments, and really wearing them on my sleeve, especially for application season. The other thing that I wish someone told me as before even applying to graduate school, is that when you think about your application, you want to think about it from the perspective of a story. What does your CV say about you? What does your personal statement say about you? What are your letter writers saying about you? How collectively is the cohesion between your letter writers, your CV, and your personal statement? Hopefully, when someone writes their personal statement, there should be things in their CV that connect to their personal statement, which also connects to the letter writers. And what's really valuable about this is that this is what makes you memorable. This is what makes you sort of a collective story of experiences in which when the committee meets you for the first time for an interview, they know exactly who you are. They can see that your experiences matches with the person that you're showing them in terms of who you are. And so I think one of the things that I wish someone told me was that to really focus on stories, like even with your personal statements, you can talk about stories of research and clinical experience. Even in your CV, I've had students put random things in their CV that maybe aren't necessarily related to their clinical or research experience. Maybe they're related to some random work experience. Maybe they worked as a circus or something like that. But what it does is that it pulls the reader into this random fact, this random experience that they may actually ask you about in the interview. And maybe it becomes a point of contact. Maybe the reviewer or the admissions person or the faculty member has also worked in a circus. And now you have this point of contact where you're communicating with each other in a way that you can relate with one another, right? And so I think a lot of times, especially if you get an interview, they like you. And really, they just want to make sure that you are who you say you are on paper, as well as in person. And if you can find that point of contact, making someone smile, making someone laugh, maybe making someone, being able to connect to someone in an interpersonal way, it will take your application so far, right? And so I think that's one thing that I wish someone had also told me as it relates to the application season. One of the things that was told to me by my mentors is the right program for someone else might be the wrong one for you. It is so much about fit. It's so much about who the research director is that you're going to be able to click with. It's so much to making sure that their interests align with your interest and vice versa. It's so much about fit rather than the top 5 clinical psychology program. Because I guarantee you can get into that program and you may not be happy. You may not be satisfied. You may not be fulfilled. You may be frustrated. And so I always advocate for fit. It should be a match made in heaven in regards to who you are as a person matches the values and the mission of the program itself. One of the things that I learned as I was becoming a psychologist is the importance of working on myself during grad school. And it's hard to learn about mental health, to learn about diagnoses and psychopathology, to be able to sit in the room with clients and supervisors, especially clients and patients who are suffering physically, emotionally, spiritually. And I think one of the things that I feel like I undervalued early on was this aspect of really, truly working on myself, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, financially. All of those things really honestly made me a better therapist, a better clinician, obviously a better friend, family member, coworker, all of those things. But the self-development and I think the the ruthless intentionality for self-reflection, for personal development, for developing who you are, not just professionally or academically, but emotionally and mentally and spiritually, really all of it overlaps. All of it is interconnected together. And I would say for those who are engaging and preparing for the path before you, as it relates to clinical psychology programs or even graduate school in general, is to not undervalue the importance of personal development. And hopefully, even as you go through this time in graduate school, and even as you start your early career, that theme and that principle will carry with you throughout hopefully the rest of your life as well. And so that's something that I've really valued for myself through graduate school, and also even as a psychologist. And I'm so excited to see how the personal development also uncovers so much more about who I am, my resiliency, my determination, my motivation, my passions, all of those things. And so if you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. You can always like and share this video. And hopefully with that, I will see you all in the next video.